Hello, friends. Welcome to Pursuing Life and Godliness. While I try to keep my channel filled with fun-loving, lighthearted content, today I'm going to address a very serious and sober subject of child pornography. Now, this has been in the news twice in the past week that I have seen local stories addressing men who have been charged with or pled guilty to the charge of possession or solicitation, improper use of communication devices. In short, two men have had child pornography on their phones and used social media to share it. Now, the first case is one that's pretty well known. It's a well-known story because a state senator, Mike Fulmer, was charged with having possession and uploading image of child pornography. Now, he immediately resigned when he was charged, and now he has pled guilty and plans to make his only public comments coming up in a few months now. The story is devastating. For full disclosure, I've met Senator Fulmer early on in his political career, and he immediately struck me as someone with great rapport, and as a lot of politicians can, he built up confidence in him very quickly upon meeting him. Several of my sisters went to school with his grandson, and they all very much respected the family. And one sister who actually had a relationship with the grandson said Mike Fulmer always treated her so well. It's a devastating story for those who were close to the Fulmer family. And one point I want to make a little bit later on is that the sin that Mike Fulmer committed did not just impact him, it had wide-ranging impact. The second story broke last week, and like I said, this was within a 7-day period of the other story. And this story is of a middle school teacher, 23 years old, someone who went through all the schools and was a part of Lebanon community of education. Well, he used Instagram to solicit sexual photos from boys in the schools. There's no evidence that he had any contact with the boys other than the social media. He's charged with 12 felonies for this behavior. Both of these stories are devastating, as I said. They have crushed a community. Both of these men committed crimes against children, and they're being punished under the law for those crimes. Child pornography is evil without question. It has devastating impact on the children who are exploited for its production, the children who were solicited and tricked into submitting their own photos. This crime is devastating, not just to the children, but to the men who committed them as well. Their careers are over. Senator Fulmer resigned. He's never going to hold public office again. This teacher is in jail with a $100,000 bail that he can't possibly pay off, waiting for his arraignment. He'll never be a teacher in public school again. But more than the immediate victims and the perpetrators and how it devastates their lives, even those who are not caught are devastated. This crime also has a devastating impact on our community as we lose trust in public officials, as we lose trust in those who are caring for children, and as the consequences expand to our families. Senator Fulmer's children and grandchildren experienced this as the public scandal resulted in community members warning their children that you can't talk to the Fulmer grandchild anymore. Don't spend time with the Fulmer family anymore. Now, I'm not going to condone this prejudiced response. I don't think it's appropriate, but it is going to happen. Same way with this teacher. His family, his loved ones, those around him will also suffer for his crime. I wanted to take a few minutes to make my reactions to these stories and some application. As I mentioned, I met Senator Fulmer once a long time ago. I guess it's almost 13 years ago when he really started his political campaign. And one of the things that he did was he shook people's hands and he earnestly asked for prayer. I remember thinking how pointed it was that he was begging, imploring people to pray for him as he went into public office, into public life. He didn't specify anything for us to pray for. He did not make any requests that would have indicated the kind of struggle that he dealt with, the temptation he had to use pornographic images and then eventually child pornography. But I wonder if he was thinking of that as he earnestly begged for people to pray for him. I did pray for Senator Folmer early on, and then I forgot about him. Kind of only thought of him when I remembered, hey, there was a used tire salesman who went right into the state Senate. We don't have to have career politicians. Kind of an encouraging story of an everyday man who went in to lead in his state. But other than that, I really didn't spend time in earnest prayer for him. So that's a challenge to me and to all of us. Pray for our leaders, pray for our teachers, pray for everyone in our community, pray for our members of our society, pray for men to stand firm, to resist the allure and the attraction that they might experience towards pornographic images, especially pornographic images of children. But I encourage you to pray for men to stand firm against the allure to pornography of any kind. We know how horrible and devastating child pornography is. It exploits children. It introduces children to sexuality in such a crass, corroded, destructive, horrific way. Exploitation of children is unspeakably wrong. And yet every pornographic image is exploitative of those who are in it, whether they consent or not, whether they are willingly participating or not. Our civil law does not prohibit adult pornography, but morally it is wrong. It degrades the image of God in every subject. No one should be looked at as a sexual object or an object of sexual pleasure. No one should be viewed in this manner. And I exhort men and women, do not participate in this. Do not look at your fellow image bearers as objects of sexual pleasure. Look at them as image bearers of the Holy God. Christians, we have no excuse. We ought never to use our eyes to look at something so horrific. Like Job said, I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I look at a virgin? How can we, Christians, look at another person sexually? To do so with lustful intent is to commit adultery. We know this. So I exhort us, do not look at pornography. And I encourage us by reminding us that there is no temptation that comes against us that is not common to man, and with the temptation, God provides a way of escape. You are never without recourse. You are never alone. Christ is with you, and his power is in you. The same power that raised Christ from the dead lives in us, and we can overcome the addiction, the draw, the drive, the allure of pornography. We have that power. Now, I'm speaking as someone who is really not far removed from that allure, from giving in to that temptation. It is a struggle for me, and I'm earnestly asking you to pray for me. We must pray for one another, encourage one another, and exhort one another. Urge one another on in love and good works. Now, the civil law prohibits child pornography, but only pornography that exploits actual children. Did you know that the Supreme Court has ruled that digital images, computer-generated images that approximate children in sexual conduct is not prohibited? It's not criminal, but it is morally wrong. We know that. So whatever the civil law says about these things, we know in our hearts that pornography of children, even if it's fake children, is wrong. It is repulsive. But all pornography is repulsive. All pornography exploits people. And even though it's legal for adult pornography to use it, to make it, it is not morally right. And I exhort us to stand against it, against all pornography, for all is exploitative. Every piece of pornography looks at people, image bearers of the Holy God, and makes them sexual objects. Dear Christians, we are not powerless against the allure of pornography. We are not powerless to our flesh. We have power in us. God has not given us a spirit of weakness. He has given us a spirit of power and love and a sound mind. I am striving in my pursuit of godliness, and with that comes the same covenant that Job made. I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then could I look at an image bearer of God in a sexual way? Pray for me as I am pursuing godliness, and I will pray for you. Thanks for joining me on this heavy topic. Maybe in the next video, I will have something a little bit more lighthearted and fun. It's doubtful, but stick around. Join me in the comments. Add your perspective. Thanks for the conversation. Look forward to joining you again as we are pursuing life and godliness. Be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above, He is looking down in love. So be careful, little eyes, what you see.